Apologies about that. We were unexpectedly cut off. Like we had a power outage. We didn't know where it came from. We sent it, and all of that. The jealous environment that we were in. Anyway, we were talking to. In fact, we're still talking to Ms. Lerato Ngobeni of ActionSA. And the point we were talking on, she was still explaining, how does their view on NHI or on health differ from that of the NHI, actually. So you were about to finish that point, Ngobeni?
Yes, so I hadn't really sufficiently started, except to say that number one in all of the things we're dealing with is corruption. And we said that we need to streamline, particularly the administrative capacity of the Department of Health to be able to deal with the backlogs that are there. Like teachers in hospitals, administration takes up the cake in terms of the resources that are afforded into healthcare, and that's one of the things that was picked up. But I think one of the key sort of highlights for us as ActionSA in this regard is to say all of our public officials will be required to use public healthcare. When I was growing up, my mother was a teacher. And teachers, to demonstrate that they are affording everybody the high quality of education, it meant that, your child should be able to go to the school where you teach. Now, if your child doesn't go to that school and you take them to so-called better school, it means that you yourself are aware that you are affording, other citizens inferior service. And so that is one of the key things that we are going to be implementing as soon as we are in government, to say, all of our officials and all of our political appointments or appointees will be subjected to the public healthcare system, so that we can demand and also feel what citizens feel. Because remember, as public representatives, we are there to advocate for improved lives of our people. And so that is one of the key things that we want to do. Another one is related to infrastructure development. You saw in the last couple of weeks, many doctors, many medical professionals taking to the streets, fighting for the fact that they are educated, they are qualified, but there's nowhere to absorb them. Now, there is no shortage of people needing medical health in South Africa. And so we need more hospitals in this country. We need more clinics that are closer to communities in this country. When you live in a place like KZN, for example, that is a very vast province, and some of it mostly very rural. In some of these instances, when somebody needs an ambulance, half the time there's not even an ability to reach the place because of the road infrastructure is so poor and so bad. And so we need to be able to have infrastructure closer to the people so that people don't have to travel long distances to access medical help. And so those are the two, I think, the biggest highlights over and above administratively what has to be done. We are saying that the NHI will present yet another trough for looting and stealing in the system. We are not ready as a country to implement that. What we must do is make sure that the system is clean and corruption free. You saw that we had, high stakes of corruption taking place during the PPE scandals during the COVID-19 pandemic. Such things should not be allowed to happen, and we need to have a public service that is able to detect and curb and stop that, because by the time corruption has taken place, recuperating what has already been lost is near impossible. Actually, it's non-existent. You can't do it. And so as a country, we end up paying for one service multiple times. And that's one thing that we want to police and we want to end and eradicate as ActionSA.
And finally, how does ActionSA plan to ensure the application of the implementation framework detailed in your manifesto, especially concerning, depoliticizing the civil service and the e-governance initiatives?
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, here you are dealing with our ability to improve the public service. Are you talking about our stance on the idea of a professional public service. Is that what
Yes,
you're referring to?
yes,
Okay.
that's what I mean by
So
professional.
one of the key things that must be done as a first order of business is to conduct what we call a skills audit, to ensure that every single person who is in the public sector is fit for purpose. We know that we've had, we don't want to call people, cadres or whatever. People are called so many different names, but nepotism in particular, that people have been given positions where they absolutely have no idea what they are supposed to do, but because they are politically linked and there are political points that must be scored and debts that must be paid, people get given positions that they absolutely do not deserve. And so we've got to conduct a system-wide skills audit to make sure that it's not going to be everybody who's going to necessarily be exited out of the system. It's just that sometimes, even in corporates, you do these things because sometimes people are misplaced. They could be better doing something else, but they are stuck in doing another thing where they are not performing efficiently. So that's one of the things. The second thing we want to do is to conduct a lifestyle audit. I think it was Thomas Jefferson, I don't remember, an American president, who said, politics do not enrich people. If you see a rich politician, you must know 9 times out of 10 they are corrupt. Because we know, as civil servant, as South Africans, how much we pay politicians. You know exactly how much we pay MPs, how much we pay councillors, how much we pay the president, etc. Unless people can declare that they are, because nobody's stopping politicians from having legitimate business interests, not where tenders go out and people, embellish the tender amount so that there can be amount that there must be an amount that is able to go into brown envelopes. So a lifestyle audit will be critical for us to determine where are people deriving their monies. Are they doing business with the state? Because you can't do business with the state as a public official. And so we've seen that has been happening and nobody's been brought to book. A case in point is the Speaker of Parliament, who is in the news at the moment. And South Africa has become so used to people behaving badly that we're no longer angry about these things. It's like, oh, another one bites the dust. That culture needs to change in our country. And the minute we can absorb men and women in the country who are committed to serving the people, what you will find is that because we will stop the wastage that is currently in the system, we can actually afford to pay people better so that they're less susceptible to being corrupt. I want to say that those are at least the two highlights in terms of how we want to undertake ourselves going into government. And maybe lastly, I should say this. You can't professionalize the public service without absorbing professionals into the system. So you need professionals, people who are highly skilled, highly educated. And that's not to say that you are limiting it to, you are closing out those people who may not be as educated. But the political system is a wide and vast system. There are other opportunities for people to participate in the process without being legislators. I mean, the work of legislators is intense. There's a lot of reading that goes in there. You are passing laws that affect the lives of citizens. And so you can't be attracting people who aren't able to perform those functions just because you want to appear as a government, as if you are a government for all people. We need a government that absorbs the best among us. And that may not be the best among us in terms of education necessarily, but the best among us in terms of character, skills, teachability, and so on. So that those are the people who are serving society, because the society will be able to derive the maximum benefit from having those people be part of our governance system.
Thank you very much. But as a parting shot, I just want to hear your view on the outcome of this the judgment passed by the Supreme Court of Appeals in Bloemfontein as regards the IEC and the deregistration of the MK party.
So I haven't followed it. I haven't seen, but I think I saw a headline that says the ANC loses the case, that
Yes,
The High Court is saying that, they're dismissing the ANC's application. I mean, you know, you could have deduced this from my view. In fact, I was speaking to somebody yesterday. I anticipated that this would be the case. Remember that the ANC did the same thing with COPE and said Congress of the People, is their concept, from the Freedom Charter and so on. I think it was disingenuous of them to do that. Of course, they had the right to go to court. We welcome the judgment. I mean, we are a multi-party democracy, and our constitution says that those who feel fit to be able to serve our society have got the opportunity to do so. We welcome the fact that the Umkhonto we has been able to be triumphant in this regard, so that they can challenge the ANC. This was the only reason for the ANC to do this was because they didn't want the challenge, the same way they didn't want COPE to challenge them. They don't want the MK to challenge them. And so for us, we're saying, we believe in competition. Competition is good for the people of South Africa because it means that all of us can take what we do seriously. All of us can look at MK and say, wow, they're doing something good in this regard. Maybe we need to do it better in another regard. They also look at us and think, these guys are doing it good in this regard. Perhaps we also can do better in that regard. That sharpens the sword of service for us to be able to compete in the space, so that it's not just a monopoly, just like what we've had with the ruling party that has had a monopoly, since the dawn of democracy for 30 years. Lastly, let me give you this thought, to leave you with this thought. When China was deciding on their plan, the one we are experiencing today, they had a 50-year plan. Had we had a 50-year plan like China did and stuck to that plan, for example, we've had multiple iterations of a developmental plan in our country that includes the National Development Plan, for example. Had we stuck to those plans and made sure that we are appointing people who are fit for purpose to execute upon those plans and those policies, 30 years into democracy, we would be halfway through that plan. For education, for example, we would have had two generations of young people who have come out of our education system who are highly qualified, highly skilled, highly trained, particularly Black South Africans who are coming out of the system. And that is one of our pet peeves in ActionSA, that we need an education system that is delivering quality for our kids, because currently the kids who are coming out of our system are not sufficiently skilled or educated. They can't be absorbed into the labor market. They are not employable. They also don't have the grades. Remember that 30% doesn't get you into university. No matter how you've got the 30%, you don't get into university. You just get out of high school. And what it means is that we have actually been babysitting children from grade 1 to grade 12. So kids have been sitting there for 12 years just being babysat. That's really what it means, because 30%, there is no qualification that will accept you in its program with 30%. And we need to increase this 30%. It is a travesty of justice for our kids. And so in the same way, we are saying, any political party, even yourself, Tammy, if you wake up tomorrow, you realize there are too many gaps between what all of us are offering, and you've got your unique part that you want to play, it's absolutely open for you to do that, because we welcome competition. And that's what South Africa and our constitution and the framers of our constitution intended when we embarked upon the democratic project in 1994 onwards.
Thank you very much, Lerato Ngobeni. This has been an exciting and insightful, and we wish you all the best in the in the upcoming elections.
Thank you so much. We also wish ourselves all the very best. We're all working very hard. And I want to say this to South Africans, that I know that this is a high stakes election, but South Africa will survive 2024. We also have 2026. We have 2029. And so fortunately in South Africa, every 2 years or so, we've got the opportunity to choose better, to choose fresher, to make a different decision with regards to how we want our country to be fashioned, to be governed, and to be managed. And with that said, thank you all very much. I appreciate the platform. We appreciate the time, and hopefully we will continue to debate on these issues in terms of how we take our country forward.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. That was Lerato Ngobeni of ActionSA. As they attempt to fix South Africa, we don't know what will happen on the 29th of April, of 29th of May. But for now, we are getting ready for the next interview. So